11 without the beach towels, I think we would have died. I'd actually debated leaving mine behind. We'd be getting wet on the river, that was kind of the whole point, so I wouldn't need a towel until we were done tubing and on our way back to the cabin. Also, my dad is very picky about getting the seats in the car wet, which I understand because they do start to smell funky, like a wet dog, after a summer of riding home from the pool with a damp suit. So I would need a dry towel after our river adventure. But at the last second I'd shoved mine into my backpack and reminded Alex to bring hers along too, which she grudgingly did. If my towel were still in the car, I would have been eaten alive by mosquitoes and or tortured to death by the flies. Even with the towels protecting our bare skin, the bugs were awful. Tiny gnats swarmed our heads, buzzing our ears and hovering in front of our eyes and even getting dangerously close to flying up our noses. 3 times I had to spit out something that flew into or onto my lips. I kept my mouth shut in a tight line and narrowed my eyes to a squint. It was hard to keep swatting away the pests while using one hand to keep my towel skirt fastened together and the other to hold on to the rolled-up inner tube. Yesterday, I'd wondered whether we should leave the tube behind. Now it was our only shelter, our house, portable like a turtle's shell. The towels protected us in another way, from the cold. I'd bet it was only in the low 50s. 55 degrees, tops. Even for hardy Wisconsin kids, that's not shorts weather. Everybody knows that 60 degrees is the cutoff for shorts weather. It's probably in the Wisconsin Constitution. As soon as the red line of the thermometer outside my kitchen window hits the 60-degree mark, Nolan and I flip out, immediately change into our favorite pairs of shorts, and yell, "It's shorts weather." That's what happens to a kid after a long, cold Wisconsin winter, I guess. Though I had my wolf sweatshirt on, it was old and thin, and my legs were bare but for my soccer shorts. Alex, with that tissue-thin cover-up over her bikini, was in worse shape. Even with our dirty, damp towels wrapped tight, and even though we were walking as fast as we possibly could, we both shivered uncontrollably. My skin looked mottled and shriveled. I'd never fully dried off, even though it had been almost a day since we'd left the river. "Hang on," Alex called from behind. I stopped, immediately having to shoo away bugs. That was the other benefit to fast walking. Insects didn't swarm us quite so much while we were on the move. Alex, panting lightly, caught up to me. "You don't have any bandages left, do you?" I shook my head. The last one, Alex had already reapplied to her stabbed toe. And if I had any others, they'd be protecting my shredded heels. "Nope. I'm bleeding all over from these bug bites." As if to make her point, she scratched hard at her elbow, leaving behind an ominous red trickle when she took her hand away. "You have to stop scratching," I said. "It'll only make them worse. I don't understand why they don't like you as much as me." She shuddered from another involuntary shiver. Ma eyed their ends of Laura. I caught a whiff of mango as she moved her arm to swat something. "Did you put on more of your body spray? I thought rubbing it in would make me feel warmer, and that it might help with the itching." I sighed. "Alex, you're attracting bugs with that stuff. It smells like sugar, no wonder the flies are tormenting you. And also me, because the scent of mango, even fake mango, made me even hungrier." She swatted frantically at something by her shoulder. "Or maybe it's because I'm not wearing that sweatshirt." I felt like I'd been stung, and not on my right leg, where I definitely had just been bitten by something. Did Alex mean that sweatshirt because without one, she was more exposed than I was? Or did she mean that sweatshirt because it was dorky, therefore making even insects reject me? I pushed those thoughts out of my head and followed her. Alex was walking with a purpose again, and I didn't want to get separated. Although sometimes I wondered if being alone in the woods would actually be better than being lost with her, the way she was acting. The way things had been all summer. Walking behind Alex, I could clearly see the damage on her arms and legs. Her bites had started out as small, pink spots on her skin, but they'd grown into large, raised, swollen circles. Most were topped with a smear of dried blood, whether from scratching or from the bite itself, I didn't know. But even the parts of her that weren't bitten up looked much worse. Her skin was covered in a fiery rash, especially from her feet to her calves. Gross little blisters had formed all over. I knew what that rash was from: poison ivy. I'd seen pictures of it before, both what the plant looks like and what your skin looks like after you come into contact with it. Poison ivy has 3 green, almond-shaped leaves, and it grows all over the place in forests, as a shrub and even sometimes a vine. You have to be really careful to watch out for it while hiking. When we first took a break yesterday, Alex had grabbed a bunch of leaves and underbrush and made that little throne for herself to sit on. I hadn't thought to check the plants she was collecting or the area she'd dumped her leaf pile onto. If poison ivy had been in the mix, she'd basically coated her whole lower body in it. She reached a hand to scratch furiously at the backs of her legs. When she stopped, the streaks looked even redder and angrier. Why up? Poison ivy. In a few places, her skin had even broken open and was weeping. You have to stop scratching, I said again. You're starting to bleed. Seriously? Alex stopped, stretching around to check out her poor, suffering legs. What the heck kind of bug bites are these? I'm covered in them. I shook my head sadly. That's not just from bug bites. I think you sat in poison ivy. How could you let me do that? She wailed. I didn't know. Exasperated, I threw up my hands, causing my towel skirt to drop to my feet. I bent to pick it up from the dirt, seeing that in addition to my own bites, I had several deep, bloody scratches. But at least no blistery rash. And it's not like you were even speaking to me when you sat on that pile of leaves. Alex didn't apologize, but she also didn't seem mad at me anymore. She stared anxiously at her oozing legs and rubbed at a spot of dried blood. I'm bleeding, and we don't even have bandages. She began to whimper. Bears can smell the blood. They'll come for us. Her breathing was becoming loud and rapid, like she was getting hysterical. I don't think that's true, I said, even though I wasn't entirely sure. Anyway, your body spray is probably masking the smell of blood. Let's just hope bears don't want mangoes. I reached out a hand to pat her shoulder, out of friendship muscle memory. How many times had Alex started sniffling about something and I'd been there to give her a hug? Like the time that Laura had gotten our whole class to start calling Alex a ledge after the substitute messed up her name during attendance. Alex had acted like she didn't care, but as soon as the bell had rung, she'd bolted for the bathroom. When she came out of the stall, her nose and eyes were telltale red. I never liked Laura after that. Memories like that are why I just didn't understand how, no matter how popular Laura might be, Alex abandoned Team Alexalin for Team Laurex, or whatever. That sounds like a name for toilet bowl cleaner. The only explanation was that something was very wrong with me. Or at least that's what Alex thought. Alex stiffened under my touch. You know what would make me feel better? It was my turn to tense up. What? The rest of that energy bar. I'm starving. She paused. You know, being hungry always makes me super emotional. You mean hangry? That was true. When we were little and Alex would start crying about something, the first thing her mom would always ask is, "Are you hungry?" And Alex would say no, but then her mom would offer a snack, Alex would eat it up, and pretty quickly afterwards stop her meltdown. That half of a bar was all we had left. If I gave it to Alex, we'd be out of food. But if I didn't give it her, she'd probably get even hangrier. It was a tough call. No, we need to save it. We don't know when our next meal will be, just give me my half of a half, please. She begged, reaching for my backpack. I took a step backward, shaking my head. Let's wait until midday, at least. She grumbled something I couldn't quite hear and then stomped away from me, into the forest. I followed. It didn't take long before she stopped at a patch of green plants and started ripping the leaves off their long stems. What are you doing? I dropped the inner tube to the ground and kneeled on it, wary of rubbing against anything that might be rash-causing. Getting my own food, Alex muttered, clutching a handful of greens. They didn't look that different than the lettuces and herbs sold at the farmer's market on the Capitol Square in Madison. Some of the market's bagged salad greens look an awful lot like the weeds I helped Mom dig out of her garden. The difference between what they sell, though, and what Alex had in her hand was that the farmers know what their plants are. And that they're safe as food. You can't eat that. Watch me. She opened her mouth, moving the handful of green stuff toward it. The website for the National Forest, which I'd spent tons of time on for my project, had mentioned poisonous plants other than poison ivy, oak, and sumac. Hemlock, the weed, not the tree, grows all over the state, and it's toxic to people. That plant could kill you. It could be poison hemlock. Do you want to die like Socrates? Socrates? She pulled her hand away from her mouth. You mean Nolan's stuffed sock monkey? That was its name. No, I don't mean his stuffed sock monkey. I mean a real person. The philosopher. He drank a cup of hemlock, and then he died. At least, I thought Socrates was real and not a character. Sometimes, with ancient figures like him, it gets confusing. Alex dropped the green stuff. Fine. But there has to be something we can eat in here. Fruits of the forest are a thing, right? We'll gather berries. I think it's just the bright red ones you have to worry about. I shook my head, exasperated. No, there are other ones too. Deadly nightshade berries can be dark. I'd read that in one of my mom's gardening books. Alex turned to me, crossing her arms. You know everything, don't you? And I'm the village idiot. Or forest idiot. Well, fine. If you don't want me to eat the next berry I find in here, no matter what color it is, then I need my portion of the energy bar. Now. Slowly, I worked my backpack off one shoulder and unzipped the front pocket. I pulled out the wrapper, folded neatly over what was left of the smushed bar. It had been cold and shady enough that the bar had rehardened, and now it broke easily into two. I held out half to Alex, who snatched it and pushed it into her mouth immediately. She made the same kind of face she used to make when the waitress would set the plate of donuts in front of us at Paul Bunyan's cook shanty. Or when she'd take that first bite of a Buttercup Lake Esmore. I shoved my half into my mouth too, trying to eat slowly and savor it, but I couldn't help myself. I was too hungry. The bar tasted better than anything I'd ever eaten. Better than a Michael's turtle sundae. And in seconds, it was gone, leaving us all out of food.